Excellent. So just good morning to everybody here. Selamat pagi. Ajahn. Sawati Don Chow. Oh, not bad. But anyhow, I hope you had a good rest last night. I was reminded that some years ago when I used to do these meditation retreats at this time of the year in Mahindarama Temple, Kampar Road, they used to put me again in kindergarten 1, the room there. And I do remember, as on the Christmas Eve, I hardly got any sleep. It was on the opposite side of the road. They were holding a karaoke party for Christmas. The Buddhists don't do karaoke parties. You know why? Because they're too compassionate. The people were singing out of tune, very loudly. Everybody else was laughing. Laughing was better than listening. And so it was really loud for a long time until they finally decided to go to bed. Fortunately, the last night it was very quiet. So thank you. How was it here? You didn't hold a karaoke party? Sometimes, how do you celebrate things? Sometimes, we've done something wonderful, something good. How do you celebrate? I've already mentioned to you that I always thought one of the best ways of celebrations is actually to offer things to other people. Whatever you have to vow to serve, to help, to donate, to help wash up, to help clean the tables, or whatever else it is. Because somehow something has helped you. And sometimes all the people who make these retreats possible, all the people who look after the food, who clean up, look after your accommodation, all the people who work behind the scenes to make sure this happens, it's wonderful that they do this sort of stuff. I did check some emails this morning, and the next retreat I'm going to conduct will be over in Vietnam. And they were telling me so far there's 1,300 registrations for the retreat. And I'm certainly not going to do personal interviews there. But it's wonderful to be able to serve and to help and to make these things possible for people. So if I've really been of service, and I feel so grateful, I want to do it again, to serve even more. And that's actually one of the wonderful things you can do, to celebrate by even serving more, and being more of assistance, more helpful. And sometimes, in a place like Vietnam, they're very strict. They really make sure you get the visas and everything right. But they said I was well known in Vietnam. I went there many years ago. And they value the Dhamma there enough. One of the books which was translated into Vietnamese is a meditation book. What you know as Mindfulness, Bliss and Beyond. That was translated into Vietnamese. And it became one of the textbooks used in universities for people learning, studying Buddhism. I was very happy about that, in its translation into Vietnamese. But even more so, they said, there's a lot of copies of your book which have been printed without permission in these bookshops in the South. What do they call those ones which have been like pirated versions? And they said, don't get upset at that, Ajahn Brahm. Please know that if a book gets a pirated edition, that means they really like it. So well done. And it's wonderful to be able to help and serve and teach meditation to so many other people. It was there where I learned, when I went to Vietnam, that many years previously, the Vietnamese government, especially their religious departments, what they call United Vietnamese Sangha, which is Mahayana Theravada, everyone, they work together, that they made a resolution to ban teaching jhanas to lay people. When I heard that, I was kind of disgusted. Why not? In the time of the Buddha, lay people could practice jhana. Why not now? And they said, don't worry, Ajahn Brahm. That rule has been rescinded a long time ago. I think there was a time when they thought that jhanas, there wasn't enough probably teachers to teach it properly. And then maybe those jhanas could be misunderstood. But I've always found them a fantastic teaching. I remember one time when I was teaching in Mahindarama Temple, teaching a retreat there over this time of the year. And it was, I think, Chao Po asked me, said, there's a lady, she's not a Buddhist, but she's having some psychological problems. No one's able to help her. Could you just have a chat with her? And I said, of course. So in the library at Mahindarama Temple, I was talking with her, and that's when it was Mahindarama Temple. And I talked with her and said, what happened? She said she had some kind of weird psychosis. She was just sitting relaxed, and everything in the whole world disappeared. She saw this beautiful light, and she went into it, and it was gorgeous. And she hadn't got a clue what it was. She wasn't upset or anything, she was just incredibly clear afterwards. And she told her doctor, and they referred her to a psychiatrist, who referred to another counsellor. She hadn't got a clue what was going on. This is a pretty true story. And so when she came to me, this is an easy one. That wasn't a psychosis. You just experienced a jhana. And I said a few other things which would have happened and how she would have experienced it. I remember her looking at me and saying, yes, that was it. At last somebody understands what I went through. I said, you don't have to worry at all. That was a beautiful experience. How you fluked a jhana was amazing. But that's what it was. You have nothing to worry about at all. And that was very happy for her. Not just happy for her, it was also happy for me being able to assist. Sometimes people don't know the existence of those jhanas. And sometimes people fluke the jhana. Fluke means they just, by chance, they press the letting go button and it happens. There was even this young boy who fluked a jhana. His father was doing some business. He was actually doing a ceremonial flowering ceremony. And the young boy was just sitting under a rose apple tree, getting really bored because in those days they didn't have PlayStations or electronic media. And the little boy closed his eyes and went into a first jhana. You know who that was? This young kid, Siddhartha Gautama. He experienced a first jhana, he didn't know why, really young. That's what happened. I think I've given you enough clues now. Why do you think the young kid, Siddhartha Gautama, managed to get into a first jhana without any instructions in this life? He just managed to do it. How come? Any suggestions? Sorry? Past life? Which past life? remember that one of his previous past lives, a very close one, was as a monk under Kassapa the Buddha, Jotipala. He would have done so much meditation under Kassapa the Buddha and also learned a lot of Dhamma as well. Died and then after going to the Tusita realm for a while. And it doesn't say that was his last birth in the Tusita realm, but it makes a lot of sense. Because elsewhere in the sutras it said once returners are mostly born in the Tusita realm. But anyhow, he would have had pretty good memory of some of the things which occurred as a student under a Buddha, this time the Buddha Kassapa. So he would have had some memory of how to meditate, just not in the front of his mind, in the back of his mind, so that when he let go, he experiences jhana. That was really important for Siddhartha Gautama, because his story. Once he left home, he wanted more than the average life, because he could experience it was not sort of conducive to freedom from suffering. That old story of him seeing an old man, a sick man, a dead man, and then someone striving for enlightenment, the 4 visions he had. That's why I often say, without the bhikkhunis, we're missing half the Sangha. And I don't want that to continue. Whenever something is wrong, do you ever complain about it? Me? No, I'm not going to complain. I'm going to find out why and see if we can solve the problem. Good example. Why is it that people always complain about their children today? Children don't listen to mum and dad. They get up to all sorts of mischief. It's one of the reasons why, if ever you go to Bodhinyana Monastery, where my main monastery is, we go to Dhammaloka, our city centre, you'll see many kids running around screaming, playing, with my permission. You know why? I want kids to feel safe and confident when they come to a Buddhist monastery. Not like at some other school, they better behave and they'll put in the corner. That's not, I think, how to create that confidence and trust with one another. So they come and make a lot of noise. And once, just after lunch in Nolamala, this Sri Lankan girl came up to me. She was about 18, 19. And she asked me this question. She said, Ajahn Brahm, I'm in big trouble. Can I speak to you? Honestly, even though I love to be by myself and meditate, and if sometimes I don't give you as much time as you would like on those personal interviews, it's not because I don't want to. It's just the pressure of so many other appointments and stuff I have to do. And nevertheless, for her, I said, yes, certainly. She was obviously very concerned. And I asked her, what's the problem? I made sure that, no one could really hear us, but they could still see us. And she said, I'm pregnant for my boyfriend. And I asked her, have you told your mum and dad yet? She looked at me and said, no. That's why I've come to ask you. Could you please tell my mum and dad for me? They trust you. It's kind of really sweet. I thought, thank you for asking me. And I said, why? Why don't you tell your mum and dad? They'll kill me. They get so angry at me. No way, I can't tell them. Please, could you go and tell them and make it nice and calm and peaceful? And then maybe they can help me. Now, each one of you who have children, Sometimes your kids do make mistakes, just like you made mistakes. Maybe not as bad or as life-changing, but nevertheless, we do make mistakes. And are you competent as an 18, 19-year-old still learning about life to know how to deal with it? And because of that, I thanked her, not just once, but many times, because it was a beautiful Dhamma lesson which helped many families over in Perth. Why is it your children are afraid of you? If they've done something wrong, they will hide it. They'll even lie. Not because they're a habitual liar, but because they don't want to hurt anybody, especially your parents you love very much. So I think in a week or two's time afterwards, I gave a talk on lying. I'm not saying it's bad or good or whatever. I was saying, why is it that people even think about lying? Why do that? It's to your parents who gave birth to you, looked after you, cared for you. Why do you do that? Because telling the truth is more painful for them. And that's one of the reasons I gave this talk, mostly to people who have children. Children who are finding out about life, going to universities, having boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever they are. You're there not to judge them, but to really help them. And I told the parents, look, your kid is pregnant. And she slept with her boyfriend. She's not a bad girl. Why can't you forgive her and help her? She doesn't even want to talk to you about it because she's afraid. If mum and dad can look at her and say, look, we don't agree with what you've done, but it's done. How can we serve and help, look after you? That's what the kids needed. That's one of the reasons why. The boyfriend was no good. He disappeared somewhere. That's one of the reasons why it's great when your kids get to know the Sangha, the monks and nuns, and the parents do as well. And everybody trusts those monks and nuns. So much so that the monks and nuns can do a service which hardly anyone else can do. Get people out of trouble. And then we're not afraid. We never need to lie. It must be terrible feeling you must lie to the people you love the most, your mum and dad, or to your partner in life, the one you marry. That's one of the reasons, one of the other things which I teach when I do a marriage blessing. I ask the man and wife to do a vow of amnesty. Not a vow of chastity. The man and wife, they're going to have sex, they're going to have kids. But amnesty. Please know that there's one person in this world you can always be honest with, and that's your partner, your husband or your wife. And if your wife tells you something and you feel terrible about it, or your husband says something you're embarrassed, don't get too angry. If you get really angry and upset, that husband would have regretted even telling you. Is that the sort of relationship you want to go through? Where you hardly say anything to each other, especially when it's really truthful but very hard. You want to make sure that at least one person, your partner in life, understands you enough to know you're not perfect. Honestly, how many of you are perfect? You can put your hand up. You make mistakes. Like everybody makes mistakes, like your children make mistakes. And one of the lovely things to do is to be able to help so your child doesn't get punished because of a mistake. They learn from it. Be careful next time, it's not worth it. But I'm your mum, I'm your dad. Or like my father said to me that one time. He wasn't a Buddhist, but he should have been. It's from the wisdom he had. He said to me, son, whatever you do in your life, however you turn out, the door of my house would always be open to you. And actually, to be fair, that wasn't much of a promise, because the house was a small council apartment. It was really, really small. I don't know how many of those apartments you can get in this big hall just here. But that wasn't the point, that it was not very much to open the door to his son. What it was, this is where I'm glad he said that, and I'm glad that I didn't understand it at the time. It was only later on when you become a monk, or for you when you go on a retreat. You're here, you spend a lot of time by yourself. And I'm very happy to see in that free time when you're not meditating or you're not eating, please don't go talking. You can talk anytime. Just find a nice, quiet place. Sit on a bench and just allow wisdom to come up. If not walking, just sitting down. Because I had all the time in the world when I became a monk. Hardly any responsibility. No computers, no phones. It was kind of bliss. So what did I do? What came into my mind? All these experiences of life, such as what my father said to me. And I thought about that a lot. He was your dad, one of the most important people in the world for me. And then when he said that, I never understood it, but I contemplated it a lot. And I thought that was a beautiful expression of unconditional love. However you turn out, whatever you do, I will never be ashamed of you. If you turn out to be a criminal, your name in the paper and saying you're a bad person, he said, that's what other people say, you're my son. And I'll always open the door of my heart to you. That really meant so much. And so because of that, it taught me not just ordinary metta, it taught me unconditional metta. And if you're going to have a partner in life, a wife, a husband, can't you make that unconditional as well? Be able to say to them, husband, wife, whatever happens, the door of my house, of my heart, will always be open. Please tell me. I might hurt because of what you say, but I will never blame you. Sharing, being honest, being open, that's a wonderful relationship we want to have. And that is the same in monastic life as well. I make a point of telling the people who I give ordination to, the door of my heart has to be open to you, even though my poor heart is so full. There's so many people you give ordination to. Nevertheless, it's my role, my job, and I can't do it any other way. If you've hurt me, lied to me, just misused me, mistreated me, it's okay, thank you. I will always understand you, try to understand you. If there's something I can do to make it better, please let me know. That's one of the wonderful things about being a Buddhist monk. Even in a place like Australia, you have respect. And I remember just a good example is opening the door of your heart. There was this one student nurse. She was from Sri Lanka, She had not a scholarship, but she had permission from the government. They didn't really help out with her fees, only a tiny bit, to actually study to be a nurse over in Curtin University. I think you've heard that word Curtin University before. It's because of some of the work. Somebody said I should receive this John Curtin Medal, which I did. That was a story I said about praise and blame. We receive blame, but we hardly ever receive praise. I received that medal. And it had many advantages to it, one of which you had an open line to the Vice-Chancellor of Curtin University. She heard me speak. I did a few other talks over in Curtin University as well, and she would always attend. And this particular occasion, this nurse, she was surviving, the study. She couldn't work herself because the study was taking all of her time. She also had 2 kids. And imagine how hard it is to be studying for a nursing degree, 2 kids, and a husband. Husband was great. He was working 2 jobs to find enough money to pay all the bills and to pay the tuition fees of his wife and to look after the kids. And then one evening, her husband never came home in the early morning from his night shift. The word came. He was so tired, he crashed the car and killed himself. That's how he died, trying to look after his wife and kids. He worked 2 jobs. You should never drive when you're that tired. And anyhow, he did. He thought, obviously didn't have much of a choice. Sri Lankan community, they made a collection to pay some outstanding bills. That wasn't enough. So they told me, can you help? So what I did, I rang Curtin University. Can I speak to the Vice-Chancellor, please? You can't just ring up a university and speak to the Vice-Chancellor. They're too important. I said, who are you? I'm Ajahn Brahm. I did win actually the John Curtin Medal a couple of years ago. Oh, really? Okay. And they put me straight through. And so her name was Professor Jeanette Hackett. Answered the phone. Ajahn Brahm, it's nice to talk to you. How have you been? It was really friendly. We've made that connection by me giving a few talks at the university, getting that medal, and treating her properly. And so what's the problem? So one of my students, she's a Buddhist, a Sri Lanka. She's in a nursing course at your university. Her husband died tragically. Had a crash. He was too tired to drive properly and is now dead. Your student doesn't know what to do. Is there any chance of a scholarship? And she said, scholarship? Of course. It was that easy. Yeah, we'll fix it up. And I said, look, I'm glad you agree, but how come? Just ask and you give it almost straight away. She said, because I trust you. I've seen you receive this medal. We all know about you. Of course. And so she got the scholarship. And that allowed her, to continue her nursing course, her kids to continue at school. And she's still grieving her husband's death. But she made it through that course. And she comes every year. To give me dana. And to make sure that I know what's happening in her life. She finished that course, she got an amazing job as a nurse, and has gone up the system, I think some senior nurse somewhere. And she always says, thank you. She thought that her life was over, thought that she don't have to go back to Sri Lanka, and all her chances of continuing that course were now gone. But she survived. With help from myself and from others, she did a wonderful job. And the result, for me, it was only a phone call. For her, it was a scholarship, all things paid for. And she, as they say, came to the party, did so well. And she always tells me, that's why I share this story with others as well. That's what life should be about. When we care for one another, help one another, are really honest and trustworthy. And it's amazing just how life can be actually successful when everyone else thinks it can't be. So because of that, she had a wonderful life, still alive, kids grown up now, but still doing really well. That goodness in a community, it's amazing how well it grows. So because of that, even in marriages, I tell husband and wife, look, please be honest with one another. And the only way you can encourage that honesty, no lying, is that whatever she says, whatever he says, you never get scolded. And then you find that both parties, whether it's the husband or the wife, when they've done something wrong, look, darling, it's difficult for me to say this. I wish I hadn't have done it, but I did. I really am sorry. And that goes as far, even as adultery. I have counseled couples. It's usually him, but he slept with some woman, so there must be a woman involved somewhere. So anyhow, imagine you've been together for a while, and he tells you that. Number one, thank you, husband, for telling me. That really hurts me, but thank you for letting me know. I'd have probably found out anyway. But number two, why? Is there anything I can do to make sure that never happens again? We solve problems. We don't so shout, that problem shouldn't have happened. Why did it happen? It's your fault. You get lawyers and stuff. Is that the sort of life you want to live? It's much easier when someone admits a fault, makes amends, and makes sure they never do it again. That's what we do in Buddhism. If anybody makes a mistake, this is in the Vinaya, in our monastic rules. If you make a mistake, please tell someone as soon as possible. And then just be honest and forgive yourself. You make mistakes. You still have things like greed, hatred, and delusion. You still have defilements. And this is what defilements do to you. You learn from them rather than be punished and be afraid by them. And then you tend not to make any defilements ever again. Just like Angulimala. How can you trust someone like him? The Buddha did. Patachara, who I told about from the Therigatha, came into the Jetavana monastery while the Buddha was giving a talk perfectly naked. That has never happened to me. To go like me. But I honestly ask you, what would you do if a naked woman suddenly come in to this hall? Honestly. You don't judge. You find out why, first of all. What's happened? Your loving kindness, your care, your compassion, it takes over. And that's why the Buddha said to one of the monks, put a robe over her. And then the Buddha welcomed her in, and then sat her down and gave her a talk. Not a talk of blame, a talk of kindness. And she became this amazing bhikkhuni. That's how these things work. So we lie, we cheat. Why? Because we hide it. That's one of the wonderful things when I was teaching prisoners in jail. It's a weird thing to say this, but some of the most honest people I ever met were people who were in prison for many crimes. And they told me, out there, outside of prison, you would lie. But inside of prison, inside, you were all the same, everyone. And there was actually a culture of honesty. You know, to tell the truth. It's a waste lying anymore. You're in jail now. And I kind of really appreciated that. Like this one prisoner who wanted a private interview with me said, "What's up?" And he said that he is in jail for a crime he never did. And straight away he told me, he said, "I know all the prisoners would say that, but look, I've seen you for a while. I'm one of your students in meditation. I never did that crime, honestly. That's true. I've been put in jail for something I never did." He was like a middle-aged, getting old criminal, been in jail a lot of times. And as soon as he told me that, by this time, I knew enough about prison life, having visited prison so many times. I always thought that every time I went to visit prison and do a service, I should keep a record of it to use as credit in case I ever had to go to jail and I could have a few months off. I always been there helping. But no. And this time, he said, I was kind of contemplating, how can I help this guy? You know, put in jail for something he never did? And I thought, that's so unfair. But I did know that if you are in jail, you don't have much access to money. Telephone calls are very difficult. It's not like, you know, these days for you can ring someone, go and see someone, ask for help. He can't do this. So I started thinking some of the friends and supporters I know who might be able to help him. And as I was silently thinking, that's when he smiled at me. He gave this very cheeky grin. And he said, "But Ajahn Brahm, I didn't do that crime that I've been sentenced for and put in jail for. But there's so many other crimes I did where I wasn't caught. I guess this is fair karma." And he started laughing, and I couldn't help but laugh too. He was teaching me karma. How many times is it that, you know, you may be speeding and don't get caught? How many times is it you turn the corner in the wrong direction? There's no one else around, they don't see you, they don't catch you. And one time when you do, you get caught. It's just karma working, that's all. It's not just bad luck. If you count all the times you weren't caught, it kind of makes sense. Okay, fair enough. But that type of honesty and that type of talking and sharing is where we grow. We understand much more about real life. We also understand the power of healing people. He wasn't in jail long, got out. It's the same when people get very sick. I don't know how many of you are doctors or nurses. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, but I've been into hospitals so many times. And so many times, you know, sitting in the bed next to somebody, and they say he's only got a few days to go. Like one of my friends, what was his name? I will call him Gary. He was in not in the hospital this time. He was in the hospice. You know what hospices are? That's where people go to die. They're so sick, all they ever receive is palliative care, just to try and make their bodies bearable for the last few days until they die. I'm not sure if you're going to enjoy this story, but it's totally true. This guy, he had been a smoker, for years, when actually people knew that it was going to kill you, but no one told you. So he was dying of lung cancer, and he was admitted to this hospice, and it was basically just a one-way ticket. You go into the hospice in a wheelchair, you go out in a box, in your coffin. He knew that. But the people in this hospice are very kind and caring. They looked at him the first night, and the nurse came up to him and said to him, it was actually Ted, not so Gary, Ted, what do you want for dinner tonight? And Ted replied, he said, look, I've got diabetes. I can't have anything sugary or sweet. I've also got hardened arteries. I can't have anything with salt in. I can't have anything like this or like that. I've got so many diseases. And that's when the doctor looked at Ted. This is how Ted told me. The nurse looked at him and said, Ted, you're not going to die because of diabetes, because of salt, of too much grease and oil in your food. You're going to die of lung disease in a few days. The sugar, the oil, the salt, that's not going to kill you. The cancer is. And so that's when Ted looked at the nurse and said, really? Yeah, you can eat whatever you want. Really? Yes. And so Ted ordered the sweetest desserts, the oiliest food, as much salt as he liked. I mean, people get upset at me for saying this, but it's totally true. He ate what his wife had never allowed him to eat for weeks. And he enjoyed it amazingly. It's like, before, when you're a condemned criminal, you can have a free last meal, whatever you want. And after a few days, he went into remission. And he walked out of that hospice, with his own two legs, his own energy. He lasted another 6 months. And then the next time he went to the hospice, this was for real. He came out in a box. I did a service for him. And that's amazing. It's the sort of things which happen. But I still remember his last words. That sometimes, we're always concerned about the last words before we pass away. I was there when he said his last words. We were waiting by the bedside. He was getting very close to death. And his whole family were there. And then they realized, I'm a Buddhist monk, I've been there for many hours. I hadn't eaten yet. They tried to make sure I get something to eat before lunch, before midday. That's the last time I can eat for the day. When it gets to noontime. It's really getting close to noon. So his daughter said, I'll very quickly get you some food. What do you want? I said, I don't care what I get. It's getting so close. I have to get something just very quickly. So they got some fast food. And now in Western Australia, fast food always includes things like fried potatoes, chips, French fries. So she brought the French fries into the room. And she did what she would always do by custom for many years to her dad. Dad, do you want a chip? And Dad said, yes, please. And that was his last words before he died. He wanted a chip to eat. It's kind of weird. But he was a kind man, a good man, and I was there with him when he died. So I don't have any doubts that he died well. So what's going to be your last words? If you're going to die today, what food do you like? So sometimes some of the stories which I say over so many years of helping and serving, you get to know people. You get to know people in some of the most sensitive times, like when they give birth. Can a monk be present when someone gives birth? I've been present. I was visiting a sick person in the National Hospital in Singapore. And when I came out of the room, I just gave him some blessings. Then I was walking down the corridor, and I saw one of the disciples walking towards me and said, Ajahn Brahm, what are you doing here? Because it wasn't just the serious disease part, it was also the part which was the maternity ward. And he said, how did you know my wife is giving birth to my first child? Honest, I said, I didn't. Oh, yeah, you sure? So I said, can I come in and give her a blessing? Now, monks, even in Singapore, are usually not allowed into the maternity ward. But he went in quickly and talked his way around, letting a monk come in. I couldn't go to the bedside because, she was half naked, giving birth. So there was a curtain. I said the other side of the curtain. As she was giving birth, I gave her a really big, strong blessing. And it was a fine birth. I never saw it with my eyes, because I would have seen other things monks aren't supposed to watch. But nevertheless, I gave full loving kindness, had a lovely birth, and that kid grew up to be a very smart little girl. So lovely when those kind of things happen. You can be of service in so many different ways, no matter what happens. As long as people trust you, as long as people feel at ease when you're around. That's why I've known so many of you for such a long time. How many of you are perfect human beings? How many of you will be very scared, really scared, if I said I could read your minds and tell everyone about you, what you've really been doing, what you've been thinking about? Please don't be scared, because if ever you do get that ability to read people's minds, it seems about an invasion of privacy to go in somebody's mind without permission. And also, if you do it once or twice, read people's minds, you understand why they don't want to read anybody's minds. There's so much rubbish in there. I've got much higher standards. It's like reading Pulp Fiction instead of a good book. You know what I mean? So if you've got lots and lots of bad thoughts, no way in the world will I read that. It's uninspiring. And I like to be inspired as well, so don't worry about anything. And that means you can serve, but then you have a lot of trust. And that's really also very important. The more that people trust you, the more that they will share with you. So please, if you have any role at all of being a teacher at school, or being a good friend, being a mother, being a father, being a partner, please make sure you cultivate that trust so well that people never feel afraid in your company. If, though, you get too popular, and I'm looking at the number of people in this room, and looking at how many people in this room? Organizers? About how many? 50? 80? Goodness. What am I going to go and do next month when I go to Vietnam when there's 1,300? You can only do one thing, and that's to be kind. You give as much as you can. You know, that's one other thing. If you give too much, are you going to get exhausted and tired? The answer is no. That's weird, but it's true. And I always quote, I think it's a story I have told you, in the demilitarized zone in between the two Koreas, North and South Korea, when I was asked to lead a walking meditation session. It was a long walk, about 2 or 3 hours one way and 2 or 3 hours back. Many times they asked me, do you want to finish now? We'll give you a lift back in an electric vehicle. And I kept on saying no. When it got to the time I really was tired, there was no lift available. So you know what I did? I love experimenting. I mentioned this. I was really tired and exhausted, didn't know if I could do any more walking. So I decided to pick up speed, to accelerate, walk faster, to do what was impossible. And as soon as I started walking faster, all the energy came. I don't know where it came from, but I started outpacing the other monks who were with me at the time. And I did overhear them saying, Kung Fu monk. He's very fast. That's what they call me, Kung Fu monk. I'm not sure if anyone who really practices Kung Fu, whether that's valid or not. But nevertheless, that's what they say. And I finished the walk easily. Sometimes, if anything happens to you like that, try doing things which make no sense. If you have cancer and you're dying, eat well. The diabetes is not going to kill you, the cancer is. So you can have the sweetest, sugariest, I don't know what you like eating. You see what happens. A lot of time people don't know all of the ins and outs of the body and how to keep it healthy. It's not just with what you eat. It's by what goes into your mind as well. If you're happy, smile, laugh a lot, then you get very, very healthy. Okay, I've been talking too much, as usual. So, I do have some questions here. Any questions just from what I've been saying? I'd put your hands up. Yeah?
Just a quick question. Thank you very much for the basic meditation.
Yes?
I want to know from this manual that you give us, this trade. Yesterday you were talking about giving meditation class to children at the age of 5. Can they use the same manual?
No. No, of course they can't. They can't even read it. Just the concept is the same, but it's the way it's presented. I had a bit of an advantage here because I was a school teacher for 1 year and I had to learn about child psychology and how children at a very early age actually learn. They don't learn through concepts, through ideas. They learn much more through experience. So if I said, this is like how the Buddha was born, he walked 7 steps. Imagine you are the Buddha and you're walking. Children are great being able to visualize and have imagination. But somehow, because that was associated with very young people, you guys, you don't do much imagination or use visualizations to help you in the meditation. You've lost that ability, which is one of the reasons why, when I ask these adults to sit down and imagine, just imagine you're fully enlightened. What would that feel like? When I do that, I emphasize it, describe it, really get into it. And once you get going, you don't want to stop. It's like a taste of enlightenment. And that's so attractive. The real deal. You can imagine how that will blow you away. But even just imagining it, you've got nothing ever to worry about ever again. Any sicknesses you have, I've seen this with my own meditation. Sicknesses get relieved and sometimes totally disappear. Makes no sense medically, but that's what happens. So you don't have to worry if you're a Buddha. You don't have to worry about any diseases, any aches and pains, any cancers. You don't have to worry about children, husbands, parents. There's no more attachments. Everybody is my parent. Everybody is my brother and sister. Everybody is my child. And you actually get into that and you really imagine it like a child would. And it gives you so much joy and peace. Nothing to think about. You don't have to solve problems. How many of you are trying so hard to get insights? I don't need any more insights. I'm a Buddha. I can just sit here. If my mind wants to fall asleep, fine. I'm not going to add anything more to my wisdom. I'm not going to lose anything more. You're totally free. And if you have any aches or pains anywhere in your body, you don't even have to worry about that. Sometimes when you have a lot of peace and deep meditation, you can look at some part of the body which may be hurting. I'm trying to find the part of my body which is hurting. Okay, just my backside, I've been sitting still too long. Sometimes you can just look at it. And I often say this, the best way you can describe it, you zap it. Zap. And it goes away. Just imagine that's possible. Imagine what it would be like if you could do that to any part of your body. Zap. And it vanishes. Pretty cool, eh? And so when you imagine you've just been enlightened, you find you can do that. So many limitations and boundaries have just been thrown away. As I say, you're free as a human being. Please don't ask another question on that topic. Otherwise I'll be sitting down meditating for no more interviews today. I get into it, don't you? Great. Did you have a question? You go on. Okay. When healing, you say when healing happens, when you get better. I don't pay any attention to when it happens. I'm just happy it does happen. So I don't really know the answer to that. Sometimes you go into a deep level of meditation, sometimes not so deep, but then still, why not give it a try? And sometimes it's because of those deeper meditations you experienced yesterday or the day before. The power is still there. Okay, I'll do a couple of questions here. Last night you said one could connect with dear departed ones just before sleep. Actually, not just before sleep. What you usually do, I said yesterday, I still remember those instructions. You make the resolution, please come and connect with me in my sleep. So you make the invitation, and then when you fall asleep, you don't get scared, you don't control in the sleep. It's like the doors are left open. And so sometimes some of those departed relations kind of connect with you. They connect with you. They connect with you as what you interpret as a dream. And when you come out of that dream, you remember that was my mum I haven't seen for a while. These sleep states are often the cases where spirits, good ones, relations, can make contact with you. I still remember the story of this one guy. He married a Singaporean woman. He was in the British Army, this guy, really big guy. And I asked him, what do you do in the British Army? Where you're a soldier? He said, no. He said, I was a dental technician. I said, you probably cause more pain than the ordinary soldier. But he said once he retired, he married a Singaporean girl, and they moved to Perth. And she'd always go back to visit her family once a year. And he had to go along as well. And he got really bored, listening to all his relations chatting. I think it was a Hokkien or something. And he'd understood no Hokkien at all, getting more and more bored. And that's when his brothers-in-law took pity on him. And they told him, look, why didn't you come to the racetrack with us? We're going there this afternoon. He said, well, I don't usually go to it. Well, just come along. It's much better than sitting here listening to your wife yak, 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 yak all afternoon. Yes, good boy. So off he went. But before they went to the racetrack, they visited a lucky temple. Now that's, what they do before they go racing, is to make sure they get some good luck by offering some incense or something in the temple. When they went inside the temple, it was like it'd been abandoned. It was really dirty and grubby. So they spent an hour cleaning it up. And the ex-soldier, Englishman, he also helped. And they worked hard and they spruced it up and it looked really good. And then they lit their incense and went to the racetrack. You know what happened? They all lost. But that's not the end of the story. They lost a lot of money, but at least they spent a nice afternoon together. But that night, this Western guy, he had a dream. This is a true story, not a joke story. He had a dream of a horse running in one of the races, which won. It was just a dream, but he remembered all the details. It was a very clear dream. So in the morning he looked at the Straits Times in the horse racing section. He could not believe his eyes that day there was a horse by that very same name running in one of the races. And he thought, okay, the heavenly beings took a bit of time At least they came forward with the name of the horse. It was running that afternoon. So he rang on the phone his brothers-in-law and said, look, you wouldn't believe this, but it's true. I dreamt of a horse last night and it's running this afternoon. Exact name. Let's go to the racetrack and get our money back. And the brothers-in-law said, no, this was a Singapore temple. You are an Ang Mo. We are Singaporeans. It would not tell you and not tell us, no, we're not going. So he went by himself. He put a lot of money on that horse, and it won. He got not just what he lost yesterday back, but a lot more. When he went home and told his brothers-in-law were just so mad and angry. These Singaporean spirits, they don't look after their own. They look after these Ang Mos who come from overseas, not us. It's really unfair. And that was a true story. And they never let him forget that. So be careful. You know the other story, I can't resist telling this one. This was of a guy over in Perth. And, he was running out of money, nothing was working. He'd lost his job. No, he didn't lose his job yet. But anyway, he had this dream in the middle of the night. The dream was of these 4 heavenly beings. And each heavenly being lined up to present him with 4 pots of gold. They're very ancient looking pots, but full of gold coins. 16 pots in all in his dream. Really heavy. But he accepted them and put them down. And once he'd received the last pot of gold, 16 pots of gold, that's when he woke up. And when he woke up and turned on the bedside light, he didn't see any heavenly beings, nor any pots. Worst of all, he never saw any gold. It was just a dream. Actually, it was 5 heavenly angels. I'm just remembering carefully now. 5 heavenly angels giving 5 pots of gold each. And when he woke up, his wife had already gone off to work. His wife had cooked for him for breakfast 5 pieces of toast and 5 boiled eggs. He wondered, what's with the magic number 5? So he looked at the newspaper, and that's when he almost had a heart attack. It was the 5th of May, the 5th day of the 5th month. So he couldn't help, he doesn't usually go gambling. He looked at the horse racing that day. And in Perth, there is a horse racing course named after the famous horse racing course in England called Ascot. A-S-C-O-T. 5 letters. And instead of messing around, he opened it at the horse races they were having that afternoon at Ascot. And he noticed in the 5th race in the afternoon, horse number 5 was called 5 Angels. Wow. You only get some of these weird sort of omens maybe once in a lifetime, if you get one at all. 5 angels was running that afternoon. So he did take the afternoon off work. He went to his bank at lunchtime to keep the lucky number 5 he drew out $5,000. We only have these opportunities once in a lifetime. And he went to the racetrack and he chose the 5th bookmaker in line. He said, I want $5,000 to win. Horse number 5, race number 5, 5 angels. And so he got that bet confirmed, got the little piece of paper, $5,000 to win. Horse number 5, race number 5. And he watched the race. Really exciting. The lucky number 5 could not be wrong. The lucky number 5 wasn't wrong. His horse came in 5th. That's why you should never gamble. Okay, departed once. Okay. Oh my goodness. Ajahn, you said in the Eightfold Path is the only way to be enlightened, correct? So how come Angulimala can enlighten when he didn't walk the Eightfold Path? Thank you for answering this question. He hadn't walked that Eightfold Path before. But once the Buddha started teaching him, and the Buddha teaching him, he started out walking that Eightfold Path pretty fast. It was through the Eightfold Path, through mindfulness and deep meditation, but very fast, because of how that happened. There are no exceptions. If you think, well, Angulimala could do it without walking the Eightfold Path, maybe I can as well, doing the special way. So murder 100 people first. No, don't do that. Dear Ajahn, you said not to spread the pity in the physical body. Oh yeah, but if I let it go to a point, should my mind feel more and more joyful? How? The point where I imagine my mind to be? What if I imagine my mind to be body spread around the whole? Anyway, you don't imagine the one point to be anywhere in your body or in space. Take away the idea of locating, this piti sukha or nimitta. Sometimes, when I was doing breath meditation, I mentioned to you because I had hay fever, my nose was often blocked. And so I just noticed the feeling of my breath. I didn't know enough that my breath was going in somewhere, or was going out somewhere. That's all I needed. And this is one of the reasons why I took away the idea of location of the breath pretty quickly. And then, just see what you could do. I started imagining my breath going in at weird places of my body. I imagine it going in on my big toe, my right foot, and going out on my left toe. Is that possible? It's impossible it goes in that way and comes out that way. You can imagine it to do that. It almost felt like it was happening. So I kind of learned how to not locate where my breath was, as long as it was somewhere. And on another occasion, I hadn't located the breath. It was going in really smoothly, coming out very smoothly. At that point, I just for interest, that feeling, where is it located? And that was the first time in that meditation I could locate the breath. You know where it was? Tip of the nose. It was just, sometimes you don't have to know where it is. Just you know it is, and it's happening. Location is another addition which can sometimes be disturbing. Because eventually, the sooner you lose the idea of this breath being located somewhere, the quicker your body can vanish. And it's supposed to disappear. So if you get piti sukha coming up, I really sort of know how to not locate it anywhere in my body. And I don't locate it just all around my body or in part of my body. I let the idea of body vanish. Because I know you experience a lot of piti and sukha, a lot of joy and happiness. You know, it doesn't really matter where it is. And in fact, it's much easier, more stable when you don't know where it is. But you know what it is. It's piti sukha. The mind is getting incredibly powered. Where is your mind? Have you got a mind? Is there anyone here who hasn't got one? A mind? You all got one? I think you're all nodding. You have got a mind. Can you please raise one finger if you've got a mind? Now please point to it. You got one. You confirm that. Where is it? Come on, point to it. I want to see. Where is it? Come on. Someone's pointed it on the ear. Someone's pointed to the nose. Someone has pointed up in the sky. I love doing this because everyone points in a different place. You all agree you've got a mind. Where is it? Up in your hair. If you brush it, be careful, you might brush it out. The point is, your mind is not located in space. It doesn't have a location, the mind. That's one of the reasons when they say that you make a mind-made body and you leave your body, either at death or astral traveling or whatever, that mind doesn't live anywhere. It's not in physical space. That's one other reason why, for those people who can sort of make a mind-made body and leave that body, just like one of those prisoners who could do that ever since he was a young kid and had an operation over in Yugoslavia at that time. And he came so close to death, he survived. But from that time on, he could always leave his body, go wherever he wanted. He was staying over in Karnak Prison Farm when he told me this. He didn't have to worry about being in prison. He could go and watch a movie or a football match whenever he wanted. But I mean, it takes a while to get 60 kilometers from this prison into the city. No, it doesn't, he said. Go there almost immediately. The mind is not located in space. That's why you think of a place to go, and you go there almost immediately. You understand? Okay. Thanks for explaining your walking meditation in breaking down every step. Can Ajahn please explain the same way of your meditation process? And there are lots of thoughts or pain. How is the exact step you do let go? You let go little by little. First of all, this is how I meditate. I sometimes teach other people to do a scanning meditation of their body. And I think that is sort of preferred than what I'm going to tell you now. I know my body for so many years. Do a quick scan, you can see any points where it might be disturbing, deal with them pretty quickly. And then I close my eyes. I don't even go looking for my breath. I don't go yawning. I don't even go looking for my breath. I just relax to the max. What I've been doing more recently, I kind of visualize the meaning of the word peace. What is peace? And I focus on that. And let peace grow inside my mind. It gets really peaceful. And you soon know the only place where peace is not in the past or the future, it's right now, in this moment. So it helps me to focus in this moment simply because that's where peace lives. And the next thing, I don't try to give it any names anymore. That's thinking, verbalization. If I try to describe it to myself, it disturbs it. So after a while, I stop thinking. I stop moving to the past or future. I stop trying to take notes. I let peace be. And I'm not concerned. Am I doing it right or wrong? Should I be taking more notes? Should I turn to this or turn to that? I usually say, shut up. It's not being peaceful. You can't reach peace by not being peace. So let peace just grow. It doesn't take that long. After a while, the peace is so established and beautiful that I can't disturb it. It seems like a desecration of a Buddha statue or something. It looks so gorgeous and wonderful. I respect it so much, I can't disturb it. It gets more and more peaceful. And that's usually when, I'm being honest with you, the experience of the breath comes up. I don't do the breathing, I'm just an observer, you can watch it. You feel it go in, feel it go out, and it just gets quiet by itself. And all those stages of meditation in the Anapanasati Sutta, you can see them happening. Just you get more and more peaceful. The breath moves from the physical breath to the mental breath. Piti Sukha comes up. When you get Piti Sukha coming up, you can't do anything. At least I can't. It's just so gorgeous, you don't want to do anything. If you're looking at something so enormously beautiful, you can't move away from it. It grabs your attention, satisfies you completely. If you can hear these amazing sounds, or see these incredibly beautiful clumps of bamboo like the one I described, you sit there for hours watching it. So you get stillness coming up. And then the breath has done its job. It too vanishes. It's the stillness and the bliss take over. And that's when you see this incredible nimittas. And that's one of the reasons why when I teach these stages of meditation, sometimes I have my own problems with them. They're just too gorgeous, which means you don't want to say anything. You can't. I become really still. Person is. Can't go any further. The mind takes over and gets really, really deep and peaceful. That's also why I've shared with a few people years ago when I was the number 2 monk in Perth. Ajahn Jacko, my senior, would do the contemplation of the 4 Brahmaviharas. Metta, Karuna, Mudita and Upekkha. And there was a lovely verse which the Buddha composed. And we would chant it, and in the middle I'd stop chanting. I remember Ajahn Jacko asked me, why don't you carry on chanting with me? And I said, look, with respect, I can't. I know the words, but I'm watching the feelings of immense metta and really powerful compassion. You can't go any further. It just transfixes me. And I was being really honest. So that's one of the reasons when I do meditation guidance, I just can't go too far. And from a certain point, I say, just carry on. And that's what I'm doing. Does that make any sense at all? I'm being honest. Of course, it would be good if I can have samadhi, but if I meditated for decades and can't reach these, and don't mean to want to find shortcut, just to confirm, is there anyone can get enlightened through pure vipassana if they really can't have samadhi? Basically, no. But don't worry about it. Just keep letting go. Only samatha and vipassana, they come together. The more you understand and see, the more you let go. The more you let go, the less you carry, the more peaceful you feel. And you surprise yourself. One of the difficulties is that people try to get peaceful. Please don't try. I may give many experiences of that, like the Ananda method of meditation. You know, one of the other methods, and I haven't told this, I usually don't tell it simply because it's kind of embarrassing. But there was this nun, bhikkhuni, I think it was 7 years, she'd been trying to get some jhana, some stillness, and nothing worked. And even vipassana never made sense to her. So what she did, please can the organizers make sure you hide all ropes in this center. She got a rope, climbed up a tree, tied one end of the rope to a branch, tied the other end in a noose and put it over her head. And she was about to jump off, thinking, no, after 7 years, if I cannot get some samadhi and peace, then what's the point? She was about to commit suicide. And just before she leapt off the branch, when she let go, that's when she got her first experience of deep samadhi. That's pushing it to the limit. Please don't try that. Otherwise, I'm the one who'll get into trouble. But I understand why it happened. At last, she stopped trying. She let go. She was renouncing everything, even her own life. And that this moment of freedom, of peace, was all that last thing which was needed. She was amazingly close without ever realizing it. Oops. You still okay with the questions? Okay, just do another question if I can get it out of the box. Yeah. Ajahn Brahm, happy Buddhamas. That's what Ajahn Chah used to say. Happy Buddhamas. A simple question. Where is Lord Buddha? Now that's like a photo, a representation. But once the Buddha becomes enlightened, vanishes. Gone, baby, gone. Once the flame is extinguished, where does the flame go? It's been extinguished. And the word for a flame being extinguished is called Nibbutta. It's a past participle of the noun Nibbana. If ever If ever you've got an oil lamp or a candle flame and the wick is used up, the wax is all used up, or wind blows the candle out. They said in the time of the Buddha, that flame, Nibbutta, is Nibbana. Even kids in the time of the Buddha would have known the meaning of that word, used almost every day. You've been extinguished. Gone, baby, gone. Oh, great, it's the last question. Where's all those questions gone? Celebrating Christmas is a Western tradition. Do Buddhists in Dabray and Bodhinyana monasteries celebrate Christmas, birth of Lord Jesus Christ, out of tradition? Because over in the West and in many countries, Christmas is a holiday period. And this is one of the reasons why I really appreciated Asian culture. In Asian culture, here in Penang, do you celebrate Chinese New Year? Do you celebrate Christmas? Do you celebrate Hindu Devali? You celebrate anything. That's why people say they love Chinese culture. Any excuse to celebrate. But it's how you celebrate that's most important. And you say that when we told Ajahn Chah, he said, you're saying Christmas. What is Christmas? Peace and goodwill to all beings. That's what we replied. Peace and goodwill to all beings. Yeah, I can celebrate that. So we celebrate Christmas. You come to a monastery for the peace and goodwill of all beings. Fair enough. It's how you celebrate it. If it's celebrating Christmas with karaoke, no way. I'm not celebrating it that way, making noise. Celebrate it by getting drunk? No way. Celebrate it by meditating, caring, keeping your precepts, spending time with the family sometimes you don't have enough time with. Yes. It's how you do it, rather than what you do. Okay. Hey. Thank you for listening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay.